Hoover's Rotten Apple, Chapter 14. Dale and Elmer trotted deeper and deeper into rural Iowa until Millville disappeared behind them completely. As Millville shrank into non-existence, the billboard ahead doubled, and soon tripled, in size. The billboard displayed a painted man dressed in a navy suit, reclined in a cushioned chair with his legs crossed and his hands rubbing his full round stomach. "Try the train next time," the sign read. "Relax." The painting was smiling at them, mocking them. "Ha ha, you gotta walk, while I get to use the train. Ha ha, my calves don't burn as though I've got lava for blood. Ha ha, my hair is slick and combed, while yours is mopped with sweat. Ha ha, I've got a roof over my head to protect me from that blistering sun. Meanwhile you're frying like a Thanksgiving turkey. Ha ha. I'm getting where I want, when I want. Meanwhile you're inchworming it all the way." Dale picked up a stone and hurled it at the billboard, hitting the rejoicing personage between the eyes as intended. "Not sure if you noticed, fatty, but there ain't no trains around to hop." Dale turned to Elmer and continued panting. "Can we take a break already? I'm exhausted." Elmer didn't answer verbally. He simply dropped with the ungracefulness of a man shot through the head. Dale lowered himself as well, and the two rested inside the world's frying pan. As they baked, their minds drifted far, far away. Dale drifted to a time when he was the Magic King, and Rita was his queen. There was that Brady Winston to consider as well, who undeniably planted those money bags in Dale's luggage during the hotel robbery. Dale daydreamed of all the lovely and brutal actions which would arise if Rita or Brady Winston ever stepped within his arm's reach. How he'd strangle Brady, and caress Rita, and punch Brady, and kiss Rita, and so on so forth for all of eternity. Meanwhile, Elmer recounted his long-lost father and all the lies which came with such recollections. The lie that his father got arrested, leaving him to fend for himself at a young age. The truth that he abandoned his father during his nightly vigil. And it wasn't until after running away that his father began struggling to keep the bank-robbing business afloat. The two ventured deeper and deeper into their imaginary rabbit holes, so deep that only an extreme such as the possibility of death would ever drive them back into their miserable reality. That extreme soared past them in the form of an automobile. The car rocketed down the road without decelerating or even honking at the two men cooking in the middle of it. Elmer, having heard the engine's obnoxious burps and clanks, jumped to his feet and threw Dale to the roadside just in time to save him from being flattened. They watched the car speed away, catching up with the horizon quicker than they ever could. Dale was too confounded to comprehend words, and his locomotive-like panting rendered him capable of only wheezing hot air anyway. What Dale was unable to say, Elmer shouted with glee. His fist throttled in the air, and he hollered to the long-gone driver, "You damn kids with your fancy cars, slow down! Almost got me pancaked, and for what? So you can get where you want a little faster, dumb some bitches!" Quicker than a light bulb turning from dark to light, all Elmer's anger transformed into cheery excitement. "Dale, that's it! The solution that'll whisk all our troubles away. What we need is a car." Dale simply stared at Elmer. Questions began filling his brain, and he didn't know which to ask first. So he started with, "Elmer," before getting cut off by a rant. With brisk alacrity, Elmer said, "Cars are the perfect pieces of machinery. I'll tell you what. We can get places quicker without using any muscle at all, and we don't gotta worry about the heat, 'cause the windows roll down to blow in all that sweet, crisp outside air. Oh ho ho! Let's not leave out them comfortable seats. It feels like you're sitting right on top of a big ball of puppies. And don't you forget, I say again, don't you dare forget about built-in radios. Gene Austen, the Boswell sisters, Cab Calloway, and my personal favorite, the Mills brothers. All them talented folks living up in our very own automobile. Ain't that something, Dale?" Elmer continued ranting, his lips running a mile a minute, until Dale intervened. Elmer, how are we gonna snag a car? Ain't nobody gonna want to pick up two dirty, mean hitchhikers. And I sure don't see no car dealerships around here, do you? Nor do I see us buying a car from any said dealership, given that we're dirt broke. With far less hesitation than Dale wished or expected, Elmer said, We'll steal one, dummy. No, Dale moaned. Why do our conversations always lead back to this? Never in my life have I met somebody so obtuse as to see stealing as the only solution to all their problems. You gotta learn, Elmer. Stealing ain't gonna do nobody no good, never. It's a bad habit. So is murder, Elmer said. And if you haven't already noticed, as of right now, the best way to stop a murderer from doing a really bad thing, killing someone, is for us to do a not so bad thing, borrowing a car without consent. Am I right? What you are is a liar. You're a sick man, Elmer, using a corpse to get what you want. Well, I don't buy one penny of it. We all know once you get what you want, you won't dare to even consider fetching them files again until some other wicked deed implants itself in your mind. It's disgusting, and so are you. Well, you know what, Dale? Every ounce of blood in Elmer's body pushed itself to his head, turning it into a bloated red ball of fury. I don't need this nonsense. Go! Get on away from me if you don't like me that much. We ain't chained together anymore. If you want to go back to the sheriff and report me, go right ahead. I can guarantee there ain't no way I'm going back to the prison without you coming with me. And I'm also certain Blue would punish us for breaking up his wall. Solidary for a month, I say. You want that, Dale? If so, get! Dale was sentenced to solitary once, and once was enough. It was unclear exactly why he got sent to solitary, a simple misfortunate turn of events, he supposed. At first, Dale thought it was a cruel prank, but after an inestimable number of hours, night came around. Or did it? Time was non-existent in solitary. Dale wouldn't know when to sleep, or when to wake, or what meal he'd eat next, or if he had slept for 12 minutes or 12 hours. It was all a hellish mystery. So, you coming with me or not? Elmer asked. With you, I guess, Dale muttered. The two proceeded, walking past the same old corn, the same old fence, the same old cows, and down the same old road. 30 minutes passed until they stumbled across a long, widening driveway, leading first to a shanty farmhouse, next to a line of trees located behind the farmhouse, and ending at a barn built behind the trees. It was apparent that Mother Nature had taken her toll on the property. All the barn's boards were either rotted, spongy, or missing altogether, and they were coated not with red paint, but with every shade of moss imaginable. As for the four-sided home, each window was shattered, yet not a single window frame had been boarded over. Its chimney had been toppled as well, littering the untrimmed yard with brick fragments. And attached to the house was a clothesline, where a bunting of quilts hung. All the quilts were washed of color and dripping wet, as though they'd been left out during the last rainstorm. Elmer paid attention to none of the property's imperfections. All he saw was a rustic automobile, stripped of all unnecessary features and parked along the barn's front wall. Holy Christ almighty! Ain't she perfect? You see her, don't you? Right under that fat oak tree. Elmer's cheeks were flushed with jolly blood. One arm was wrapped around Dale's shoulder, and the other was pointing at the rust bucket. Let's go get her, Dale. Dale grunted and pushed Elmer's sweat-dripped arm away from him. The two started down the driveway. As he traipsed behind Elmer, an unignorable sense of foreboding swelled inside Dale's stomach. With this uneasiness came a nostalgic twinge of excitement, the combination of rush, risk, and trickery that comprised the act of thievery reminded him of his old magic shows and made him feel on top of the world. The two reached the driveway's end. Directly ahead was a trashed barn surrounded by trees of varying shapes and sizes, along with all the shade which the trees provided. The shade wasn't the only scenic feature Elmer and Dale had to be thankful for. Instead of one car, there were 7, all lined up against the barn wall. Oh, my golly, Look at this, Dale. We hit the jackpot of all jackpots. I say again, the jackpot of all jackpots. Elmer cried as he frolicked about from car to car. What? How? Dale was addled. Where these cars even come from, Elmer? Who'd need this many? I do not know, and I certainly do not give a damn. You go find a siphoning hose from inside that barn. I want to be the guy who picks out the car, Elmer said, already eyeballing his desired vehicle. Dale glanced inside the barn. One breath of wind and the entire structure was doomed to collapse. And if, by chance, he discovered a siphoning hose inside the barn, he'd never in a million years put his lips to it. The barn's interior was slathered in exotic molds and liquefied decay. This whole mission is your idea, so I think it would only be fair if you're the one who goes into that death trap. Dale looked at Elmer, who didn't hear a word being spoken. Elmer was instead hypnotized by a slim, black bombshell of a machine. She had all the power and angelic awe of a metallic stallion. She was a luxury of another time, a time before the Depression, when confetti reigned in the streets and gold was king. Gold wine, gold suits, gold instruments playing gold orchestral music. Not a single dot or dent of age existed throughout her entire body. Elmer placed a hand against her driver's side window and sighed, Well, shit. Sorry, Elmer, but it's only fair. I don't give a hoot about your damn siphoning hose. We got bigger fish to fry. Much, much, much bigger fish. Elmer tapped the crystal window and said, See it? Dale pressed his face against the glass and scanned the car's interior. It contained every feature Elmer asked for: cushioned seats, manual window cranks, and best of all, a radio. Nothing funny stood out to him in the slightest. That was, until he laid eyes on the Virago. Her bloodshot eyes expressed a degree of martial hatred Dale previously expected only humans to be capable of producing. Her vampiric fangs flared, and oozing from her ebony lips was a foam the color and consistency of spoiled milk. She was the fattest, most bilious raccoon Dale ever laid eyes on. Oh my, oh my, oh me, oh my. Dale stepped away from the glass and said, Elmer, this is a simple problem, and with simple problems come simple solutions. What we ought to do is pick a safer, more capable car and take that one. No. Yes. No. Why not? Well, hell, ain't I glad you asked. Elmer marched to the car line's end, pointing at each car as he passed. This car's got rusty innards. This one ain't got no front seat. All this one's tires are as flat as flapjacks. He passed over the beauty without saying a word, and continued down the row. This fella's got more holes in it than a politician's alibi, and for God's sake, this one's got a bush growing through it. That's why we ain't taking any other car but this here beauty of a beast. Okay, Dale grumped. Well, why don't we just open the car up and hope she crawls out on her own? We can't. I believe she's got some little raccoon eggs she's protecting in there, Elmer said, too serious to be true. No, what we ought to do is take her on like the men we are. I'll be right back. Elmer sprinted inside the barn and returned less than 10 seconds later with a splintery baseball bat in hand. He tossed it to Dale and said, Now what you need is some extra layers so if she bites, it won't tear the skin. Don't want to get rabies now, do you? No, you certainly do not. From his clothes bag, Elmer produced a ball of dirty button-ups and his sports jacket. Dale ended up wearing 6 layers of protection. If he'd been wearing a million layers, the raccoon wouldn't appear any less frightening. If anything, the reeking stench of body odor that accompanied his hefty attire only worked to further agitate her. Dale creaked open the car's driver's side door, unleashing a tidal wave of air humid enough to boil. Oh boy, he huffed. Not only do I gotta bother some coon, but I also gotta bother one who's been stuck in this unbearable heat for God knows how long. Folks half your size have fought through wars for the fun of it, Dale. I'm sure you'll survive a little coon, Elmer said. Nothing little about this sumbitch. Dale squatted between the passenger and driver's seat. That was as far into her personal space he was willing to penetrate. The raccoon's aggravation dilated by an interval of 10 since he entered the automobile. Her mouth was gushing worse than a fire extinguisher, and her fervent eyes were the size of tea plates. As her temper heightened, Dale's fear rose correspondingly. Sweat crept through every single one of his protective layers, and he wrung the baseball bat tight enough to produce blisters on his palms. Elmer's head popped inside the car. "What are you doing? Swing her with a bat, crush her eggs, do whatever needs to be done." I, Dale faltered. "I don't think I can, Elmer." "What the hell, Dale?" Elmer slammed his fist on the car roof. "People died doing man versus man warfare, and here you are chickening out on a good-for-nothing raccoon." "If you're so determined to beat the coon out of here, why aren't you doing it yourself? Here, take it." Dale pointed the bat to Elmer, who in return pushed it away. "I ain't doing that," he said. "Why so?" "'Cause you're the magician, goddammit. You've been working with animals your whole career. Me, I don't know diddly squat on how to handle them." "That's a terrible point. It's still a point nonetheless." "God damn you. That's all I'm going to say. God damn you, Elmer." Dale spoke in a forced monotone, not wishing to egg Elmer on with any harsh tones. He returned his attention to the coon, who'd killed her hiss switch but continued giving him the evil eye. "This'll be nice and easy, sweetie. All you gotta do is cooperate, all right?" Dale gently lowered the bat to her snout. "The plan's to beat the thing out of here, not poke it a bit," Elmer commented before the bat contacted the raccoon. "What are you doing?" Dale failed to comprehend what he heard and disregarded it altogether. Instead of bashing at her, he continued inching the bat closer and closer until the raccoon reacted. When she did react, he regretted his conciliatory attitude immediately. She sprung forward and pierced his arm with her needle-sharp claws. "Ah! Get her off me! Get her off me! Lord have mercy, please just get her off!" Dale cried as he flailed his arm about. The shaking infuriated her more than ever. No signs of an end to her attack were visible. Unless he worked up enough courage to fight back, his arm would be shredded into bloody ribbons. It took a hearty 30 seconds longer than needed, but eventually, Dale punched her away. She flew to the back seat, and he evacuated the car, slamming the door shut to ensure she wouldn't give chase. "That'll be the last raccoon I touch in my entire life, I swear to God!" Dale then fell to his back, bathing in the shaded grass and staring at the green canopy above. His breathing eventually decelerated, and the booming of his heartbeat soon reverted from dynamite to firecracker, and from firecracker back to its orthodox thumping. "What are we going to do now?" he asked. A second of hesitation passed before quietly, apologetically, Elmer whispered, "I don't reckon there be anything else we can do, but have at it again, Dale." "Hell no!" Dale tossed his baseball bat aside and began stripping off his makeshift armor. "We'll find another car, okay? Or maybe we was stupid thinking we need a car in the first place. Walking ain't that bad, you know, and there's plenty of beautiful scenery along the way. And I know we ain't going back to Almond City anyhow, so no use being in a rush to get there." "Wait a second. Are you blackmailing me with not going to Almond City?" No. It don't matter where we're going. We gotta get there quick so them coppers don't get after us. And I already told you this is the one. The problem ain't the car, it's the coon." "I understand that, Elmer. But what are we gonna do about her other than pretend we're Babe Ruth and she's the baseball? Wrap a blanket around her like some raccoon burrito and throw her in the trash bucket?" Elmer's entire body erected with excitement. "Dale, you're a genius. Leave it up to you to find the perfect solution for the perfect automobile. I saw a clothesline out by the shanty house. I'll go fetch us a big old quilt to bag the coon in. Thank the Lord and thank you, Dale Hartsfield." "No, that's not what I meant. Elmer was already gone. Dale produced a groan, loud and drawn out enough to perfectly illustrate his discontent. His arms crossed, and he sat patiently on the car's long, slick hood, awaiting Elmer's return. "If he makes me wrap that little bastard in a blanket, I swear I'm gonna make him the next murder victim to be found in the sewers. I'll tell you what," he mumbled to no one. Chapter 15. Elmer wasted no time browsing through the clothesline once he reached the shanty house. As he paced about, he tested the toughness of each bedsheet, quilt, and blanket hanging in the wind, all while debating how thick was thick enough, how big was big enough, and how durable was durable enough. His searching came to a dead stop, however, when he noticed he was being watched. From inside the shanty house stood a silhouetted man, eyeballing Elmer from behind a glassless window frame. How much had this man seen? How much did he know? Elmer needed to keep cool. With a plastic smile, he bounced closer to the broken window frame. "Hello there," he said with a wave. "A beautiful home you got here, with plenty of green land, too. You're too late, boy. I know what you've been up to, trying to steal me cars. Well, guess what? I phoned them up and have 'em coming for you and your scrawny pal." The man's Irish accent was as dense as his hair was thin. As if on cue, a police car came rolling down the Irishman's driveway and disappeared behind his forest. "In fact, I believe them's here now. They ought to teach you not to snoop around other folks' property. I'd teach you myself, but—" Elmer stopped listening and began a mad sprint back to the barn. "Dale! Dale, watch out! Coppers are coming!" Of course, Dale already knew of the law enforcement's arrival. By the time Elmer returned to the barn, Dale was already beaten to the ground and bound in rope. A rope around his hands, a rope around his feet, and a noose around his neck. Elmer froze to properly perceive the entire scene, from Dale's woe-begone facial features to the sheriff and deputy standing by. He only recognized the sheriff at first. The deputy's new overalls and straw hat took him by surprise. Dale's noose was hanging from an overhead sycamore branch, and the rope's tail end was being gripped by Kid. All Kid had to do was pull down to raise Dale up. Elmer completely understood the situation at hand, yet he found himself incapable of moving. He was petrified, suspended in a state of utter terror which would only be broken by brute force. The brute force came in the form of a baton jabbing into his upper lip.
"Get on your knees and show your hands where I can see 'em, you filthy pork pie. Now!"
Palmer hollered, holding the baton just as one would a handgun. Elmer blinked and realized he would either do as Palmer demanded, or the knot around Dale's neck would grow tighter than before. So he submitted. Palmer withdrew 2 scraps of fabric from his pocket. One was a black sack and the other a tattered, rotten oil rag. Leaving Elmer be, he returned his attention to Dale. "No, no, 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 no," Dale tried, shuffling as far away from Palmer as the noose would allow. "Don't put that rag in my mouth, please. There's no need to. For God's sake, be humane." Once the noose ran out of slack, he began craning his neck away from the germy towel. Palmer grabbed a fistful of Dale's hair and used the towel to dilute his screams into muffled groans of agony. After the gag came the black sack, covering Dale's face so he and Elmer no longer maintained sorry eye contact.
"All right, kid. Hang 'em high. I want to see 'em dangling like a puppet,"
Palmer called, pointing at Dale and shooting his finger into the tree's canopy. Kid began to pull, lifting Dale's knees off the ground. As Kid pulled harder, the noose grew tighter. Dale raised higher, and Hope became smaller.
"Tell Sissy I say hello, piggy."
Palmer spat just as Dale's toes left the ground. Dale began huffing and puffing immediately. His voice was restricted by the gag, the noose, the sack, and by his own panicked hyperventilation. Yet he managed to rasp one single syllable word before his airway was closed altogether. Who?
"What?"
Palmer screamed.
"Kid, drop him, now!"
Palmer stomped towards Dale, who was now laying in torpor on the ground.
"What did you just say?"
Palmer barked, ripping the sack from Dale's face. The first feature Dale saw with his newfound vision was a face molded from 100% fury. "Who's Sissy?" he asked, sounding as though he'd recently gargled glass.
"Wait, so you're telling me?"
Palmer said, struggling to suppress a homogeneous mixture of screaming and laughter.
"You two not only kidnapped, tortured, murdered my baby sister, and dragged her into the sewers to rot in a bath of crap and piss. You didn't even have the common courtesy to learn her name. You didn't know her, and no motive. You just woke up one day and says, 'Hey, We should slaughter an innocent, beautiful girl like one would a lamb.
A goo ball of tobacco spit flung from Palmer's crimson face and landed between Dale's nose and lip. Boss, Kid whined.
Not now, kid. I swear if I hear you whine like a girlie one more time today, you're gonna be next to hang. I joke you not.
Palmer shouted and returned to Dale.
I will personally see through that you burn in hell. No sympathy. I ain't even gonna.
Boss! Kid groaned louder this time. Palmer bustled towards Kid and didn't stop until their noses pressed against each other.
What in the name of God do you want now?
He screamed loud enough to scare the birds from the trees. The other guy's getting away. He ran out back. Kid pointed at the two impressions Elmer's knees made in the grass. They were the only indications that Elmer had ever been present to begin with.
Shit, shit, shit! Stay here and make sure this little pig don't do nothing funny. I'll be back to take care of him in a minute.
Before taking off after Elmer, Palmer hissed to Dale,
Your pal just signed his own death certificate. You hear me? He's deader than death himself.